guys, welcome. It's Wednesday night once again, and here we are. And just like Tom was in a new space last week, I'm in a new space this week. I'm actually at my mom and dad's house. Here's you hear me talk about Russ all the time. Here's the man himself, my dad.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah, so we're just getting ready to eat some turkey tomorrow, and perhaps some of you guys are as well. So yeah, just looking forward to having a good time. But we've got a really slap full show for you tonight, and we're going to try to move through it as quick as we can. So Dad's just going to hang out here with me and see what Dana Bell has to say. I want to say hello to everybody. We're going to, if my mouse will work, are you going to get out of the way? All right. He's going to sit over there and hang out and watch. So I'm going to throw all the chats up on the screen like we have recently figured out that we're able to do. And I'm going to say hello to everybody. Now, Frank Landris, I know you're in the room somewhere. I saw your chat that you left yesterday. Frank went ahead and said it's party time. And I don't know why in the world the chat deleted that, but it did. So I've got to figure out why the chats get deleted if they get left too early. I don't know. But anyway, hello to everybody else in the chat room tonight. We're not going to go through each and every one. Just to save us some time, because we've got a big Black Friday announcement coming here in just a little while after Dana. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my co-host Jeff in here with me. How are you tonight, buddy?
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Heck yeah, absolutely. Well, it's good to see you. I hope you're doing good. I guess you are.
I'm doing well. I got this chat thing in front of me. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, look at that. Well, let's see.
I have to do this maybe, or...
well, we'll get Dana in here in a second, and you're going to move up to the top corner. So
there you go. Yeah, it's been a busy week. A lot of prep work for Black Friday. Everybody's kind of in overdrive. Things have been kind of crazy here as well. We got our first snow.
Good.
Really not good. Not good. No. But yeah. So winter is officially here. We got snow, and looking forward to tomorrow. It's going to be a quiet one around the house here. So my wife and I are empty nesters now. So we're just going to go out for dinner and have a quiet day at home. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, hey, we've got, like I said, we've got a long, hopefully not a long show. We've got a full show, and we want to get everybody out of here. I know everybody's anxious to go buy some goodies and add to the stash. So why don't we bring on our guest of honor tonight, Dana Bell. I've known Dana for several years now, but if I understand correctly, you've known him for quite a long time.
Well, I'm trying to remember, and you might just as well bring him up because I'll ask him the question directly.
All right, well, here he is. Dana, how are you, buddy?
I think
hello. Good to see you both.
Good to see you.
I think Dana and I first met at the National Archives in College Park, Maryland. I think we ran into each other pulling boxes with white gloves. And it was a funny conversation because if I remember correctly, and forgive me, it might be somebody else because I've been hitting the head quite a few times, but I think I was carrying a box and I looked at you and you looked at me and you're like, what's in the box? And I'm like, ship stuff. What's in your box? And he said, airplane stuff. And we started talking, and here we are 30 years later, still doing the same old stuff.
It sounds about right. You run into the best folks up at the archives, and it's always nice.
Very cool.
And we've just kind of been, we do this communication thing, on and off again. We don't talk to each other for 2-3 years at a time, and then some color thing will come up, and I'll chime in, and he chimes in, and the next thing you know, we're talking for a while, and then we see each other at a nationals, and Tracy White and Ron Smith, they were some of the other regulars that were at the.
Tracy and Ron may be coming up to the archives later next month, so.
Very cool. Yeah. Very cool.
Well, awesome. Well, guys, so Dana, you've got some very nice things prepared for us tonight. Over the last few months, Jeff has done a couple of presentations on USN ship colors. And we've had a lot of people looking forward to having, we call it ship night, and we've been looking forward to aircraft night, and that's exactly what this is going to be. Now, what I want to tell everybody before we get started, because we do have quite a bit to cover tonight, we're going to split this up into at least 2 parts, tonight being part 1. Dana's got about 45 minutes to an hour worth of material to cover. And then right after that, we're going to dive right into our Black Friday sale. I've had a lot of people asking and emailing if my family, my wife and kids, if we put together a video like we did last year. And the answer is yes. And we plan to show that to you at about 10 o'clock. And then, of course, the Black Friday sale, while you guys are watching that video, I'm going to be over here fixing the sale up, and the sale is going to go live right after that video finishes airing. So we've got a lot to do. Dana has prepared all of these slides. He's going to be telling you all these things. Comments and chats between yourselves are more than welcome, and we may address some of the chats tonight, some of the questions. But what we are definitely going to do is, after this, if you would please email us at info@squadron.com. Email us any questions you have for Dana pertaining to what he talks about tonight, or perhaps something he doesn't specifically talk about but still pertains to what he's talking about. Send us those emails, and in part 2, Dana's going to answer all of your questions best that he can. Not to put you on the spot, Dana.
And in episode 3, he'll do a 3-hour dissertation on the differences between SAN 26 and SAN 49.
Yes.
Wow. The crazy thing is, he's more than capable of doing all of that.
I did find a document that SAN 26 and SAN 49 are exactly the same color. So
there you go. Well, Dana, I'm going to put you front and center.
No, that was me.
I'm going to try to put you front and center. It's one of these buttons. Give me a second. Oh, there it is. No, there it is. There we go. Put you front and center, and this is your show, buddy. So you take the lead here, man.
Okay, let's put up the first slide, and I'll run my gums a bit. Most of what we're going to talk about tonight comes from recent archival research, either for books that have been published in the last few years, or books that are still coming up, things I've been trying to get done. But we had a major move recently and have not had much of a chance to get everything unboxed and get me back to writing. This is just something pretty to look at. This is 2 camouflage schemes, by the way, and we'll talk about both of the camouflage schemes. You can see the light gray camouflage scheme, and it's wearing off the dull aluminum camouflage scheme. Part of what I want to say is I've been hearing too often how some of my research is just so much better than what other people have done in the past. And quite frankly, I know better than that. The people that were writing before me were better researchers in so many ways, it's ridiculous. The difference is that right now the archives has been processing more and more materials, and we're getting access to records we never knew existed before. And it's the joy of going in there and finding the magical stuff that comes out. The one piece of paper that says, "Don't worry that you don't have a spec for SAN 49. We have the exact same color, is SAN 26. And let's see, I'm going to criticize. Oh, yeah. If I'm going to say a lot of things that you probably have not heard before. You may see a few things that are repeats, but in my Rivet Counter series of books, I like the whole idea to be that if somebody asks you, what color is this, or should I be putting this rack on this wing, or whatever the question is, if you have the answer, by all means, feel free to help. However, if somebody just finished a model and puts it down and they use Tester's bright green to camouflage a B-29, don't say, well, Dana Bell says you're an idiot. Nobody ever used that color. And it's a matter of the appropriate time and place to actually use information. And most of the folks here, including the 3 of us, we just enjoy the information for its own sake. And if we're lucky, we may get to incorporate it into a model. And one of the things I want to say is we all have access to some documents. Let's go to the next slide. But not all documents are trustworthy. this is a letter from Hoyt Vandenberg. Says the P-61, as a result of the operational use over the beachhead and recent tests, is believed the best available airplane for assignment to the two 9th Air Force squadrons, the two night fighters. I've got my camera in front of my own screen, in the 9th Air Force. And that's pretty conclusive. It is the best available airplane. What's missing, though, is the piece of paper that came out 3 weeks earlier saying the Mosquito will not be available. So he very carefully uses the word best available without saying the best airplane. So you'll find this sort of thing going on all the time, where people are trying to cover their butts, quite frankly, and say what gets them through most safely. The other big thing, particularly when we're talking about colors, especially interior colors, is tech orders and specs. Let's go to the next one. Yeah. According to Navy specs and tech orders, the standard camouflage for their aircraft in 1942 was blue-gray over light gray. Okay. And most of us are probably familiar with that. In a few moments, we'll see why that's not quite true. Let's take the next one. Now, we use a lot of different sources. These are two photos of the exact same airplane, exact same day, same camera, same film, actually, but one of them was treated pretty well and put into nice storage. The other one a little less well. Different exposures. You can see that you've got one airplane, two totally different camouflage schemes, and you can get into some really good arguments if you want to about what color was applied to the airplane. All right, let's go to the next one. All right. First thing to understand when you're talking paints is what the finish coats were. You have dopes. Dopes have to go on fabric, okay? You can't put fabric on an airplane without dope. And it has to be applied thick, wet, and heavy with a brush. You soak the fabric all the way, and it tightens up. And then you soak it again, and it tightens up some more. And that's a standard use for any fabric surfaces at the time. We're talking World War I all the way up to 1950s. Lacquers are really wonderful. You can put lacquer on metal with a very quick drying time, a very thin coat. They're not usually all that heavy, and they get the job done. However, you can never put lacquer on top of dope because the makeup of those old lacquers ate right through the dope into the surface and into the fabric and gave you fabric fatigue. Now, the other thing is enamels were very popular. The Navy in particular would use dopes and enamels, but not lacquers during the 20s and 30s. Enamels you could put on top of anything you wanted. You just couldn't put lacquer or dope on top of enamels. And it comes out that it is going to show some problems in the things we're going to look at in a couple of minutes. Pardon me, I have my favorite Coke. Nothing in it. Ice. The Army and the Navy had totally different ways of looking at paints. The Navy decided what color they wanted to use, and they created a list of formulas on how that paint could be created by a manufacturer. You had to use so much percent of this chemical, so much of that chemical. All of the elements that went in had to be identical. The Army simply said what the paint had to do. So when you hear that the Army formula for dark olive drab 41 was these colors, it didn't exist. The Army never, or at least during the 40s, 30s, 20s, the Army never created a standard on how you could make dark olive drab 41 or any of the other colors. They said your paint had to be applied, it had to weigh this much, it had to last this long, it should match the color chip that we're going to show you, it should do certain things, and it was up to you as a manufacturer to create that paint and make it work. As long as it worked, they didn't care what you made it out of. All right. Banana peels, you throw them in the can. If it does the job, everybody's happy. Another thing to make everybody.
Dana, I gotta pause you real quick because Jeremiah was a bullfrog. He just fixed all of our modeling problems. He says that you modeled
Yes!
it wrong, and in fact, you modeled it correct, which was in fact wrong.
He is right. The object here is not to be more accurate than anyone else, and we're going to discuss that in a moment too. It's to realize that you have far more options. And as much as I love to buy off-the-shelf paints, I usually mix them with something else because I'm a big believer in TLAR. That looks about right. You take a color like dark olive drab, it's going to fade before you can get it out of the can and onto the airplane. It's just that cheery ping as it fades several degrees.
Yep.
And I look for the impression of what these colors look like. However, I love to study what was actually going on at the time. They're two different things to me. Anyway, you'll hear about blue-gray M485. Okay. Blue-gray or M485 was the standard for Navy non-specular lacquers. It was all camouflage lacquers with one exception. The only one not included in M485 was blue-gray. When they did come up with blue-gray, they created a new spec that was M485A. Okay. So, but you've also got fabric on most of these Navy airplanes. So there was a separate spec, M520. My camera's in the way again, which covered all the dopes. And again, it said, here's how you can make light gray. Here's how you can make insignia white, insignia blue, insignia red, not insignia yellow, because there never was a color called insignia yellow, by the way. I just thought I'd share that. Let's go to the next one. All right. This is the Army Spec 3-1, which looks, there we go. Look at that. There's the spec.
Yep.
All right. Look at the back. All right. You see all those stains? Let's darken that up. The light's going through. See all those stains from the glue? This spec, if you had an original spec from the 1930s, and you looked at this, you could color match any of the colors you see here. However, these colors are not the same colors they were in 1935. For one thing, the paper off gases. It leaches acid because it was a pulpy paper being used, and because the pulp came from trees, it off gases hydrogen peroxide, which is great if you want to fly a German rocket plane, but really bad. Well, it's also good if you want to bleach your hair, but it is not a good way to store your paints. So each of these color standards that we have is still the standard, but it's not the same color that it was all those years ago. You can see the ever important bronze green number 9, second column from the left, third paint down. You can see olive drab 31 over all the way on the right, flag blue, light blue 23. We'll look at that a little more closely too. All these are the colors for the entire U.S. Army. These are not aviation colors. These are U.S. Army colors for anything you wanted to paint except camouflage. Okay, we go to the next one. Here we go. And here's spec 41, which is the spec for camouflage colors. Same thing. You can see dark olive drab. Now, dark olive drab 41 never made it to FS 595, but here it is. And you can match that as close as you want, but you're not matching the color they had in 1941 because this color has been affected by the acids coming out of the paper, by the hydrogen peroxide coming out of the paper, and by the glues used to stick each of those samples to the to the back. And if you look at mine here, you can see the glue stains. Those glue stains changed the standards. So perhaps more importantly, when you were a paint manufacturer, if you sent your paint into the Army to have it approved for application to Army aircraft, they would gig you for anything that didn't work right. Durability, weight, volatility, any of the problems that could happen with paints, they would not let you sell your paint to the Army, with one exception: if you missed the color. If your color didn't match the standard, they would send back all your paint saying, you are approved. By the way, your color does not match the standard. Please correct that before you put it in production. Well, nobody went back and checked to make sure that it got corrected, and nobody made sure that the correction actually was matching the color, which is why so many of the colors disagree with each other. And again, not having a standard formula for what the paint should be allowed great variation as the paints faded. Just enough to keep everybody a bit crazy, including me.
And perpetuate arguments for 80 years after.
Right. That's not olive drab. I had a great argument in the mid-1970s with a fellow about the quality of the olive drab I was using. And after, I don't know how long we were arguing, he said, well, you know, I can tell colors. I may be colorblind, and I am, but it's red-green colorblind. However, I can tell that your paint is wrong. And it's a great argument. I lost the argument. By the way, I don't know, we'll tell that story another time.
Dana, can you imagine these guys back making all these original paints and coming up with all these, you know, ways to do all this? Can you imagine if they had known 80, 90, 100 years later, a bunch of modelers would be sitting around arguing about how to paint a little scale model of these things?
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
The stories that they'll get us with. All right, so that's Army colors. Now let's go to the next slide. Where did it go? I said everything. Oh, there it is. It's dark. I couldn't see it. What you're looking at is the Navy color set. This is what the Navy had in the early 1930s. You can see that. Matter of fact, we'll stick with the chart up there, and we'll just put me in the corner. There we go. All right, you've got a color sample. You've got the sample inside. This is insignia red for the Navy. Cardboard folder, glued up the center. If they can't get enough hydrogen peroxide or acid out of the wrapper for the individual color, you've always got a nice wooden box that's glued together that'll peel off all sorts of hydrogen peroxide and acid and affect your standards. You may want to get in a certain zone with your painting. And quite frankly, most of the paints that we buy today are doing a pretty darn good job trying to get us into that zone. And of course, if you're painting one company's orange yellow versus another company's orange yellow, you'd like them both to go on the plane and look the same. But they didn't always look the same. So this box, in 1934, the Army decided that those little thumbnail picture or paint samples they had in Spec 3-1 just weren't quite good enough for manufacturers to do a good job matching the color. Okay, so they came out with these iron plates, porcelain on top, and then the nice reflection here. Anyway, and then the paint sample would be applied to it. Now, it did not seem to matter to anybody except the manufacturers that none of the paint samples that they were being provided here were the same as the paint samples that 3-1 originally had. So, I mean, massive variations. Which one's next? We're going to take another in a minute. Now, at the same time that these new color samples are being created for the Army and the Navy got together in 1934 and created an Army-Navy aircraft color sample. It didn't make sense at the time for Navy insignia blue and Army insignia blue or insignia red or any of the other identical named colors to be totally different colors, especially concerning a manufacturer. If you're Boeing or Stearman and you're building PT-17s, you don't want to get the wrong insignia blue onto your airplane because it's going to actually go to the Navy instead of the Army. So they came to an agreement on most of the colors that would be used in 1934. Let's see, here we go. Speaking in, okay, this is the Navy color True Blue. Oh, look, there I am again. It's Navy color True Blue. We'll talk True Blue in a moment. Matter of fact, let's go to True Blue. Yep, there we go. There's the standards. There's Willow Green. Let's go to the next one. This is the Army Standard 3-1 color for light blue. The one on the left, that turquoisey color, and this is not a very good representation, but the one on the left is the original turquoise blue used on the fuselages for Army aircraft, trainers initially, then everything in the mid-1930s. Under the new system, with the new plate, you got that color that's on the right. It's still called light blue 23, but as you can tell, it's totally different.
Yep.
All right, we go again. Let's go to the next slide. There's light blue 23, the porcelain version on the left, and on the right is the Navy's True Blue. And just to make things a little more confusing, in 1941, the Navy decided not to call it True Blue anymore. They decided to call it light blue. So if you were going to be painting PT-17s, for example, and somebody said paint it light blue, you had three totally different colors available. If you see enough color photos of PT-17s or N2Ss, you can tell that a lot of different light blues were used. We'll pop one more. There we go. This, I keep hearing that there are no samples of the original blue-gray color available. This is one of those unavailable samples. The Navy took cardboard, sprayed a quick coating of zinc chromate on it, and then on top of that, they sprayed the light blue-gray camouflage lacquer. The problem is that they stacked them up. Spray it, put it on the stack. Spray it, put it on the stack. And you can see all the damage that happened when they took them apart and mailed them out to the field and said, go ahead and let's use this. All right, keeping my pieces of the story together. Okay, there we go, there we go, there we go. Okay. If anybody ever wants to see the actual samples, I've found 4 so far at different places in the National Archives. And if you actually want to go in, now the archives is not going to let you take them home, and please don't take them home. But if you want to see the original color chips, I can provide you with record groups, series, and box numbers, and you can go have a look for yourself just to get a good feel of what they were. All right, let's go one more. All right, zinc chromate. What's our time?
35 minutes.
You're fine, Dana. Go ahead, buddy.
Well, I'm having fun, but we're not going to get to the end. But I think it's important to give a little more understanding what this all is.
Oh, yeah.
The original primers were long oil primers. They were thick, heavy paint, somewhat flexible, took forever to dry. You had to let it dry for a day or so. Very often you had to bake it in. In 1929, I believe it is, an engineer for Ford came up with almost a lacquer quality primer based on zinc chromate, and it was quite wonderful. But both the Army and the Navy rejected it out of hand. The Army rejected it because one of their standards for what your primer had to do was you had to be able to put the primer on a piece of metal, bend the piece of metal, and if the primer flecked and broke off, then the primer was not suitable for use. It took a few years before they realized that Pan Am was using zinc chromate primer, and it was magnificent. Of course, it still would chip and break off, but as somebody pointed out, if you took part of your airplane and bent it and the primer didn't chip and break off, there's something very strange going on with your airplane. So the Army and the Navy both started coming in with zinc chromate primer. Of course, they both had totally different standards for what the primer had to be made of and how it had to operate. But it was yellow. Now, if you want to paint the inside of an airplane, a metal airplane, so it's safe back then, you had to put on 2 coats of primer and 1 finish coat. Usually it would be either 2 coats of long oil primer or 2 coats of this new zinc chromate. And then the finish coat was generally a lacquer or an enamel, usually of aluminum. And what they would do is they grind aluminum up into a very fine powder, mix it with the spar varnish to make an enamel, or mix it with a lacquer to get a lacquer, and they would spray that on top. So you'd have a silver interior. The finish coat protected the metal from corrosion, and it worked real well. Well, the folks at Wright Field had a real nifty idea one day, and Northrop was about to deliver an Alpha to the military, and the folks at Wright Field said, "Look, let's save you a step. Go ahead and spray zinc chromate primer on the airplane, but then take your aluminum finish coat and your second coat of zinc chromate primer, mix them together, and that way you only have to apply 2 coats, but you get the same effect." And that was a great idea. And about a month later, they get a note back saying, "Yeah, it's working fine, but did you guys know this is green now?" And thus began Interior Green. It was simply a mix of aluminum and zinc chromate primer. It was a bright candy apple green. The Air and Space Museum has a Northrop Gamma. If you look inside that, it's green. It's bright. It's circus green. And that's
and Dana, you just said something that kind of goes along with Dave in Arizona's question here. Talking about your paint chips and your originals and the ones that are in the archives that we can't bring home with us. How do those compare to, why can't we just go look at some of the airplanes at the museums? So talk about the differences in your original chips versus how some of these planes might have been painted these days.
And you can quite easily. However, zinc chromate in particular was an artist pigment used during the 1600s. It was beautiful. It was a really, I think it had a name, something like saffron yellow or something like that. I have to pull out my book and look it up now, but not one I wrote, by the way, but it was an artist. Rembrandt used it. Mm-hmm. The problem it had was when you mixed black with it, it got darker and greener. And of course, if you heat your house with wood or coal fires, over time, everything that's in the air, all the pollution, whatever the source, all those carbon particles that are in the air start mixing with the zinc chromate, and the color changes. If we were to find the airplane this young lady was working on back in the early 40s, I believe she's at a Vultee plant, but if we were to find that, and it never went into service, and we went to see it today, it would be much greener by now.
Yep.
Because of all the cars driving outside, all the sources of carbon in the air, they're going to get absorbed slowly into that. So everything that you do is subject to change when it comes to painting an airplane. And you can go to look at what a museum has if they haven't changed something. I remember talking to some folks that were redoing a cockpit, and for the life of me, I can't remember what the airplane was. And they were very upset because the color that was left inside the cockpit was an incredibly dark forest green color. So they corrected it after they, cleaned everything off and went back to repaint it. They repainted it the proper interior green color. The problem was the cockpit had been painted dull dark green, and nobody knew that the color existed. It was at a time before that little bit of history had come out.
Yep.
So they took an accurate color and replaced it with an inaccurate color, thinking they were correcting it. So color science, it's not stable. It's not going to stay forever. However, over time, you can get an impression. Looking at this, zinc chromate is a cool green as opposed to a warm green like a chrome green.
Mm-hmm.
It's chromate, but it's zinc chromate, not chrome oxide like a chrome yellow. So instead of being a warm color, essentially, he had a very cool green. And any cool green, very cool yellow. Any cool yellow is going to have a slightly greenish tinge to it. And I'd be happy with anything that comes out of a bottle that looks fairly cool. As a matter of fact, looking at the fact that the skin on these airplanes was probably primed at a different time than the stringers and the structure, it looks like two different zinc chromates have been used on this airplane. You can see a difference in the colors because the color didn't matter. It was the chemistry that mattered.
Right.
And nobody gave a darn about, there isn't even a preserved color chip anywhere that I can find of 1930s or 40s zinc chromate primer. It was simply a chemical that you put on to protect your airplane. Now, we talked about adding aluminum and getting that real bright candy apple yellow. That was sort of it made things a little too bright in the cockpit. You got too much reflection. So they added black to it. Hey, let's go to the next slide. Okay. And the color on the left is excuse me a second. I'm drying out.
Don't worry, Dana. I don't know what color it is either.
It's yellow.
You're going to remember way before me.
I have all of my notes over here, and I haven't even been flipping the panel. Anyway, this is yellow green, and yellow green is a mix of aluminum, zinc chromate primer, and black, and that reduced the reflection in the cockpit, made the cockpit safer for night flying because you had lights beside you shining on your instrument panel. You didn't want reflections from all the metal in the cockpit also reflecting on your instrument panel, and this reduced it pretty well. However, the color on the right is interior green, which is, there was an aluminum shortage, or at least there was advertised an aluminum shortage. So in 1943, they came up with a final primer color that was zinc chromate and black, but no aluminum in there. And you can see there's a world of difference. Now, the color on the right, the interior green color, didn't exist before the middle of 1943. So when we get a bottle of interior green and we put it on P26 in 1937, they weren't using that color at the time. But you can see how the colors change. And interior green was the first color that could be standardized, that actually had a chip that you had to match. Now, the problem was making your own interior green, and you had to make your own interior green, had to be done at the time you were painting the airplane. The zinc chromate tended to settle out. Any additives you put in with the zinc chromate, whether it's aluminum or black or any other pigment, tended to settle out, and you were left with something less capable of doing the job. So you had to mix your 55-gallon drum of interior green or yellow green the day you were going to use it, and then use it for the rest of the week or so. But the next week, you better be on to a new drum color because it just wasn't going to work that well.
Yep. We nailed these colors, by the way.
Yeah, and it matters.
Did anyone the story of how we got to chromate green and interior green for us? I was at the Air Force Museum, and I got a paint swatch book, and I'm standing next to the gear door of boxcar, and a docent was kind of freaking out because he didn't know what I was doing. I explained to him what I was doing. He's like, "Oh, you're one of those paint guys." So I laughed, and he said, "Do you have any business cards?" And I said, "Sure." So I handed him a business card. He goes, "No, I need more than that." I handed him a couple of business cards. He says, "Stay right here. I'll be right back." 15 minutes later, he came back. He had gone out to the restoration shop and dipped both of my business cards into actual 1944 dated paint tins.
I love it.
And he said the interior color was the one that they had used on the Memphis Belle restoration. So he gave me these two cards. He had even hit them with a hairdryer to kind of, it was still a little tacky. And then we brought them home, photospec'd them, and guess what? That's these. You could put ours side by side and they match yours.
I love it.
I guess we did something right.
It's an accident. I didn't mean it. All right. Hey, let's hit the next slide. The color on the left is yellow green. The color on the right, as you can see, is bronze green. Now, how did this all come about? You have to realize flying cross country in the mid 1930s, you could get a Douglas sleeper transport or a DC-2 or a DC-3, and you could fly only so far, and then it got dark, and you would land, and you'd get on the sleeper train, which would take you from somewhere in the Midwest all the way to Albuquerque. You'd get off the train, go over to the airport, get on another DC-3, and it would fly you to California. And you had just flown transcontinental. And but they were starting to get planes to the point that instrumentation allowed them to fly at night. But again, the problem with reflection inside the canopy or inside the flight deck was a real problem when you're trying to fly a whole bunch of passengers, and it's dark, and you've got your cockpit lights on, and you're getting all this reflection all over the place. So Douglas came up with a color they got from DuPont called pine green, and they painted their cockpits pine green, and that seemed to work pretty well for them. The Army decided they needed to settle on one color, so they got an A-17 built by Northrop, the folks that first made a green primer coat, and they got a C-32 built by Douglas that had the bronze or the pine green cockpit, and they flew the two of them to every Air Force base in America. And you have to realize every Air Force base in America was what, 6 or 8 bases?
Yeah, at that point, yeah.
Yeah. So they brought the crews over and had them all look inside the cockpit and sit in there and try and decide what color worked best. And the thing they discovered was if you flew in an airplane that had a cabin, like a DC-2 or a B-10 or anything like that, you tended to like pine green. And if you flew in a fighter or an attack airplane that tended to have a cockpit instead of a flight deck, you tended to like yellow-green. And so they came up with a bifurcated system. It wasn't which one was best. It was which one would satisfy their crews. And so if they were ordering and buying more bombers, B-17s, for example, bronze green was ordered because they didn't want to use a commercial paint. They did have bronze green, however, in the 3-1 standards, which was very close to pine green. And, of course, they had yellow green because they were the folks that had talked Northrop into using it in the first place.
Right.
And so that system went on for quite some time. And just when they started coming up with permanent camouflage, DuPont created a match for dark green, and I can't think of the color number, but it was a camouflage color in the temporary colors. And DuPont wanted to make one, a lacquer based on that. Well, the Army didn't need a dark green lacquer. But the Navy looked at it and said, hey, you know what? This dark green, this really dull dark green, is a far better cockpit color than bronze green, because bronze green tends to be kind of oily and still reflects a little too much. We'd rather go with this dull dark green. And sure, why not? So out of the blue, we get a new color called dull dark green. You have to realize we're not doing actual experiments here. We're actually polling opinions as to what people like. And that's the way most of these colors are going to come about. And I'm sorry, limey green. Excuse me. All right. Let's see the next slide. I have 105 slides tonight. Now we're going to slide number 19. We're not going to make the end.
Maybe we're going to do this in 3 parts.
6 parts.
There you go.
With a test at the end of each part. All right.
Well, go ahead and give us at least a few more minutes tonight, Danny. You got everybody's attention, and I think we're all
We'll
loving
give it a 10. We'll get it all the way up to World War II.
There you go. There you go.
All right. The Navy's interest in camouflage doesn't pick up until 1934, and then it pretty well goes nowhere. But in 1938 and 39, they start with a bunch of new experiments. Now, in 1937, they had gotten to the point that they had standardized the right colors to camouflage all Navy airplanes. The bottom and sides of the aircraft were to be dull aluminum, which would be an aluminum enamel, spar varnish mixed with aluminum paste or aluminum powder, either of those, to which they added either Bakelite or cornstarch. And that dulled the surface. And they felt at the time, again, opinion, not a test, but they felt that was good enough to hide the airplane in the sky. On top, they found the color that was most effective was dark green. And sort of like what the Japanese figured out somewhere along the way. And it's infuriating, quite frankly, that we have so many aircraft painted in those schemes and no photos to prove it. The aluminum scheme, we've got a few just overall aluminum. The dark green over aluminum was originally designed for flying boats, patrol planes. And everybody, I hope, knows the movie Dive Bomber. Okay, Errol Flynn, Fred McMurray. And at one point, one of the trainers is flying inverted over North Island just to prove what a great pilot he's turned into. Well, don't look at him. Look at the background. Look at the patrol plane launch areas. And there on the water, way off in the distance, is a dark green PBY. Now, it's not like it was the only one. How many PBYs have I got here? 32, I believe, PBYs were camouflaged in dark green over aluminum. In 1935, in November, during a test, they painted the same scheme on 39 aircraft from 11 carrier squadrons and 2 patrol squadrons, BM2s, BFC2s, BG1s, BF2C1s, F4B4s, P2Y3s, PM1s, SU2s and 3s, and 3 TG2s. Where are the photos? It's why I have to keep on living a little bit longer, because I really want to find them. It's frustrating to find a piece of correspondence that's nothing more than a transfer document saying, Attached, you will find 42 photographs of the recent camouflage experiments. Now, you know, the photos weren't stolen by a researcher, or we'd have seen them by now. They simply didn't stay with the correspondence.
Yeah.
And maybe in some admiral's footlocker somewhere, there are 42 photos of camouflage experiments. Let's go real quick to the next one. Okay. This is a test they ran in summer 1940. Yes. 3 airplanes on Yorktown. Each of them is painted dull aluminum on the sides and bottom, and the tops of each one of the 3 aircraft was dark green. One of the aircraft, the dark green was untouched. One of the aircraft, they put a light modeling of dull aluminum on that. And the third airplane, which we see right here, had a heavy mottling of dark green on the top. They went out on war games to Hawaii, repainted the tops of the airplanes in dark gray. And the same thing, one airplane just dark gray on top, one airplane slightly modeled, and the third airplane heavily modeled. And then finally, they went into Pearl Harbor, and after more tests, they repainted the airplanes a third time. Black on top, aluminum on the bottom, unmodeled, heavily modeled, and lightly modeled. You'll notice they were doing no tests on underside camouflage at the time. And they were doing, I'm looking at the time, I don't want to hold you up, but they were doing lots of tests on variations. By the way, they did determine that dark green was still the best color to camouflage your aircraft if you were going to do that. And again, I point to the fact that nearly everything they were doing ended up being used by the Japanese. Go figure. Technology transfer, if you wish. And with that, let's go 3 more slides and then we'll break. How's that?
Please go ahead.
Okay. Here is the dull aluminum camouflage. You'll know it's not all that dull, but it is dull aluminum. And as these Dash 3 Wildcats were being built, the tails were already built and painted before the orders changed. Navy says, that's right, we'll take them. So for Ranger, you had a number of aircraft with the green tails, and for Wasp, you had a number of aircraft with black tails. And again, nothing but dull aluminum camouflaging them. You'll also notice they have not modified the national insignia as they would do later. Okay, next one. Now, long after they decided they weren't going to use dull aluminum, they were still testing it because nobody was talking to anybody else. This is in late summer 1941, and this is an overall dull aluminum SB2U out at the tactical unit at North Island. And they'd already decided not to go with dull aluminum, and yet here it is being tested, and they're moved on to other things. And the third slide, they said, you know what? It still reflects too much. No matter how dull you make the aluminum, it's still going to glint in the sun. Why don't we give you this light gray color and you use that instead? And they came up with this light gray. They accepted it. They standardized it. They had manufacturers apply it to all of their aircraft, but they never tested it. They just knew it should be somehow better than a shiny metal aircraft. But better than that, somewhere along the way, they thought, wouldn't Black Friday be a wonderful idea? How's my segue?
There you go. Perfectly timed.
Oh yeah. Well, Dana, this is like information overload. And
I didn't even get into the fun stuff.
Oh, I know. I feel bad that we scheduled you on the same night that we were doing this Black Friday thing. So we've got to have you back.
I thought it'd be a nice thing to do before Thanksgiving.
Well, it's
We'll have to get
more
up.
than a nice thing to do, but we've got to have you back. And I've got to say, I'm kind of with Jeff. There's no way this is going to be two parts. I mean,
No.
I don't know, maybe we've got to have you once a month until you're done, which might be for a few years. This is just a ton of information, and it's wonderful information.
And I'm amazed because when I do camouflage talks about ships, everybody yells at me and tells me to get off the stage.
Ah.
We're over here. They want to forget the Black Friday sale and just keep going with Dana.
Well,
Oh,
in that case, can we take a quick look at the last 3 slides?
yeah, please do.
Jeff, this is just for you.
Oh, the very last,
the very
that's
last,
the
Very
first-
last 3 slides on the program.
I
Can we
got
get
you, Jeff. Right there.
Ah, ha, ha, ha. All right. You know I'm crazy about the turret colors.
Yep.
This is 1926, early 26. It's the best view. Let's go next one. West Virginia in the standard turret colors of 1925. And you can see 4 stripes on each of the turrets.
Yep.
The 4 stripes are red, white, blue, and yellow. And they represent the flagship of Battleship Division 5. Battleship Division 5 painted turret colors on all 4 of the main turrets, and the flagship would get those 4 colors. If you also look at the aircraft in the back, that is the beginning of high visibility colors for Navy Air in the 1920s and 30s. They were doing it on the battle fleet, but nobody had thought of doing something like that on the one carrier that they had until you can see the Curtiss fighter up near turret number 3. They saw what the battleship guys were doing and thought, well, maybe we ought to do that too. And this is where it all begins. Anyway, thanks for that extension.
Wow. That's cool. That is very cool.
Oh yeah. He threw a little Easter egg in there for you too, Jeff.
We've been sharing information and research for decades.
Yeah.
And he always has something new. He always has something that I've never seen before.
There's always something good to trip across.
It was funny, Dana, earlier when I was showing Jeff the slides and we were just making sure everything was going to work right. He kept coming across pictures, most of the ones that you haven't even got to yet. And he's like, oh, wow, I've never seen that picture. And then he'd go a couple more. Oh, I've never seen that one either. And I'm like, Jeff, how have you never seen a picture? But it just goes to show how much information is out there. Dana, as much as you've seen and as much as you've had, imagine all that you have not seen yet.
Oh, I have a bucket list.
Yeah.
I have a bucket list, things I'd like to find proof of.
Okay.
You know, I spoke to, and I can't remember the lady's name. She was the head archivist at Archives in the late 90s. Wonderful lady. And she basically said, if we had an army of people doing what you do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it would still take us 100 years to go through everything that we have just in the camouflage world.
Yep. Was that Holly?
Holly, thank you.
That was Holly. Yeah,
Yep.
she was right too.
Yep.
Well, let me step aside here. I'm going to stick around, but
yeah, stick around. We'll touch
people
base
are
with
really
you
itching for.
after we're done. We'll
Yeah.
come back and talk to you a little bit more in the back end.
We'll summarize where part 2 is going to go.
All right.
Absolutely. Well, cool, Dana. We if you hang around in the back room there, we'll be back with you in just a little bit.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much, Dana. Yeah, we've got to get him back on, Jeff, as soon as possible. So
yeah,
I'm stalling just a little bit if you couldn't tell, because I'm having technical difficulties.
Oh.
You got to love technical difficulties. So we're about to launch this Black Friday sale, and I'm just trying to make sure that it's actually going to be ready at the end of this video that we're about to show. And hopefully it will.
It better be, because you know the old saying, if it's not, I got to sing show tunes, and nobody wants to hear that.
Ready or not, it's going to be. All right, guys. So the last year, my family, my wife and my kids and I, we put together a video that we posted to announce our Black Friday. And it was a lot of fun. The kids loved it. And we showed it off for the weekend. And then by Monday or Tuesday, we took it down, and it's never been seen again, because these prices are good for this weekend only. So we've done the same thing again. We've got a video. This is going to be our way of announcing the Black Friday sale. And this video is actually about 20 minutes long. It's not a 2 or 3 minute little thing. We've put a little time and effort into this. It's kind of cheesy maybe, but we love it. And the kids had a blast doing it. So I hope that you enjoy this, and by the end of this video the sale will be live, and you can go out and add to the stash. So
now, having had a sneak preview of this, I'm going to tell folks, you've got some amazing one-off stuff coming, but you got to listen to the second half of some of his sentences, because he's talking about putting entire product lines on discount.
That is true. Well, let's check this out. Before we get started, I've got to make sure you guys can hear this, because this is the first time that I've actually streamed this way. Give me a second. Okay, that is the right one. Tell me if you can, and there's a 10 or 15 second delay, so I've got to wait till you guys answer me. So please let me know in the chat if you can hear me talking right here. Hey guys, thank you for joining us tonight. Before we get into the Black Friday video, I've got a few. All right, I'm going to wait for the delay to come through, but you guys let me know in the chat if you could hear me talking on that video.
We're good
And
to go.
Everybody looks like it's good to go. All right. Well, me and Jeff are going to get out of here, and we will be back in about 20 minutes to say good evening to you. But for now, I hope you enjoy this. Hey guys, thank you for joining us tonight. Before we get into the Black Friday video, I've got a few things I wanted to cover, mostly because in the excitement of making this video, we forgot to mention a few things. First of all of the doorbusters, these super special deals that we're about to show you, these are all going to be listed in the doorbusters section within our Black Friday page. So go to the Black Friday section, and over on the left where you have all the different choices, just choose doorbusters under the category type. And then all of the items that are on Black Friday, the full line sales and everything we're about to mention, are listed in the Black Friday. So on the website, up at the top, just click down to categories and click Black Friday, or from the home page, it's the very top left button. It's purple. It says Black Friday. So click that and you'll be able to see everything and filter it on the left by brand or category. There is more items listed in the Black Friday section than we are about to mention in this video. It's just don't have time to mention everything. So just keep that in mind. I know we've got some of our Squadron Signal Publications books marked way down, for example, but we don't mention those in this video. So just make sure to check the Black Friday section for everything. The sale price that you see on our website is the price you pay. You'll see three prices: the MSRP, then second, you'll see what we normally sell it for. We usually sell things for around, between 10 and 20% off, sometimes a little more. But then you'll see a third price, which is our Black Friday sale price, and you'll find out in a few minutes what those prices are going to be. But anyway, the price you see is the price you pay. The shipping fees, they are just like any other